Wrong, and with those few words I just want to commend the bill to the House.
Brendan Burns.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I just wanted to pick up on some of the comments from the member opposite about the over 55s in respect of their capacity to learn and continue learning. It is essential, if we want to encourage people to continue learning, to continue having flexibility, to continue picking up new careers, that they should have access to training, to skills, to higher education, because obviously we only need to look at the number of career changes that people have in life. And at 55, people may well be working for another 20 years, plenty of time to repay loans. And I'd like to see the evidence to suggest that those over 55 were paying the least amount of their student loans, because that would absolutely be out of line with everything that I know of that sector of the population who are generally regarded as being the most responsible people in terms of their debts and obligations to society. So I would like to see the evidence presented, and we haven't seen that. That is not at the heart of this bill. This is at the heart of actually encouraging the repayment of student loans, and I support the notion that we must have a facility like student loans to allow people onto the staircase of higher learning. And the reason for that is not just the higher incomes that it brings for them, but the higher productivity it brings for us as a nation, and the higher prosperity it brings for a nation. I think we might be beginning to work out as a nation that we cannot simply make our way in this world with our hands. We need the skills from our head, and we need the highest possible educational outcomes, achievements from all in our society, and that's why student loans have been an important mechanism. We acknowledge the costs that presents. That's why Labor is supporting this bill. But do not forget the principle involved, and that is that we want everybody in society to be able to go into tertiary education, to upskill themselves so they can contribute not just for themselves and their families, but for us as a nation, and that's why we have a student loan scheme. I wanted to just say around the costing of student loans, and we've had the figures presented to us by the IRD and Treasury, currently at about $11+ billion, projected to go to $14-15 billion. Big costs if you consider that the current education spend per annum is of the same order of around $11+ billion. Obviously the scale of the student loan debt is high. This bill, of course, is beginning to address some of those issues, but I would also note the amounts involved, and it is I thought interesting to see that the gains suggested around the order of $22 million over an $11 billion annual cost, no, not annual cost, that's the total cost of the student loan portfolio, $11 billion. About 0.5% doesn't seem to be quite the scale of things that might have been projected. But this bill is actually also recognising that we need technology to connect to students, many of whom do go overseas. I was very pleased to see in his final speech to us as parliamentarians, our outgoing Governor-General, Sir Anand Satyanand, used his iPad to read his speech to us today. And I think that's an acknowledgement. Now, Sir Anand probably is somebody, let us guess, maybe in his 60s now. I don't want to be unkind or uncharitable, but there's somebody who might well go on to another career yet, despite the distinguished career he's already had. And there he was, using the technology of the 21st century, and that is at the heart of this bill. We're going to see IRD implement a system where you can go online, check your balance, make your payments, contribute back to the nation for the education that you've had in some part. That's why Labor is in support of this bill. I wanted to just note also, though, that the regulatory impact statement does talk about how, while most borrowers will benefit from the changes, some will be disadvantaged, and that's where Labor has picked up on during the course of this debate some of those people, and that's the role of an opposition, to point out some of the holes and inadequacies in a piece of legislation. And yes, a $40 fee in administration per annum may not seem a lot, but it does add up cumulatively over the time of a loan. We're talking a normal loan period of the order of 5 years, and obviously students are not very able to pay. obviously when they come into a job better off, but it's still a fee that will cause some of them some disquiet. And I was particularly though pleased to see in the bill the move on the late penalties payment, because that really was a usurious rate when they were being charged effectively credit card interest rates at 19.5% per annum. If we're wanting to encourage people, we have to make it clear to them that they're going to be treated fairly, and that wasn't fair. And I think basically it said to some people they don't actually need to bother, it's too hard, the interest rates were too high, and to pull it back to about 10%, 10.5%, or about 8.6 if they go into instalment arrangements, I think provides the correct sort of incentive and signal to former students that they need to take their responsibilities, and the state's going to assist them with that and not treat them like a credit card company might. As we've discussed, we've got $11 billion in debt in relation to the loan balances of the student loan scheme, nearly 600,000 people. I actually think we actually want to encourage more people to come into tertiary education, not discourage them. The average amount of borrowings only of the order of $7,000. Obviously you put all of the 500,000 plus former students in to a total, and that's why we're seeing the numbers involved and the projections to go to $15 billion by 2015. That's why Labor is supporting this bill through the Parliament. We have some disquiet about some aspects of it. We've raised those in the appropriate setting. We are particularly discouraged by the allied move in Budget 2011 to exclude 55-year-olds from the potential to benefit from the changes made to this bill. We do not regard that as appropriate. That is a very, very discriminatory signal to those in the 55 plus community whom from the beginning of the year after next will not be eligible for the student loan scheme. That is a very negative signal. That's very clearly what is going to happen from the Minister's announcements accompanying the budget in on May 19th, that they will be seeing students from the beginning of the year after next who are aged over 55 as of the 1st of January not eligible for living costs or course-related costs. Living costs will tell me what other component of costs students face, a member opposite. That's exactly at the point and heart of what we are saying, that those people are being disadvantaged, discouraged from trying to get themselves into another set of learning, and therefore the opportunities that there would then be in front of them to allow them to learn another career, another discipline, move into another job with some extra skills. And at 55, people still have 15 or 20 years of working life ahead of them if they so wish. That is why Labor says that is not an appropriate part of the government's moves on student loans. Those people should be able to be eligible for loans, to be able to benefit from the changes made in this bill in terms of the greater flexibility that is provided in terms of how to repay your loans, to be able to go online and repay them, the lowering of the interest rates. Those are all positive changes that are welcomed, and a tidy up of the student loan debt profile will result, even if it's going to be modest. It is a bill that we have considered in great detail through the Finance and Expenditure Committee, and in closing I'd just like to acknowledge the work of the Select Committee under the former Chair Craig Foss and the incoming new Chair Amy Adams. We have worked comprehensively as a Select Committee on this bill. I'd like to thank the officials from IRD and other departments who've assisted us. It is a complex issue, and I'd also like to acknowledge the work of my colleague Stuart Nash, who's not able to speak on this bill today, but who's put enormous work into this bill on behalf of the Labor opposition. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr.